Mississauga. For the closed session from last week's council meeting, I had a conflict and did not attend the in-camera on the non-union salaries because I've child working for the region, so I guess I need to declare a conflict on the minutes as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miles?
The same, Mr. Chairman. I declared a conflict, so conflict on the minutes.
Okay, staff so know. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to declare a conflict on the same in-camera minutes as I have family working for the region.
Okay. Moving on then to the approval of the minutes of June the 27th, 2013 Regional Council meeting. I have a motion by Miles and Thompson, or was that Whitehead? Whitehead. Are there any errors or admissions for the approval of June the 27th, 2013 meeting to be approved? If not, all of those in favor? Opposed, anybody? Motion's carried. Approval of the agenda. I have a motion by Carlson and Dale. I'd like to draw to your attention that there are some additional items that you've received on Tuesday. Just in case you don't have them, we can still make sure you have a copy of it. On housing, there's an additional one for authorization of bridge financing to support the housing of the Peel Hansen Project 247 Queen Street East in the City of Brampton, Ward 3. Under Chief Financial Officer, there's the election of the regional chair as requested at June the 27th, 2013 Regional Council meeting. Other business is also a resolution about funding for the Peel Children Aid Society, as was requested on June the 27th, 2013. And also a request from the City of Brampton to delegate to the September 26 Council meeting 2013 in regards to Regional Council meeting regard to the composition of regional councillors, direction required, and in-camera item are the minutes of the closed sessions of June the 27th, 2013 Regional Council meeting. All those in favor as amended? Carried. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to confirm that the consolidated agenda says that there's a request for the City of Brampton to come on the 12th. I didn't want members of council to be confused. After speaking with staff this morning, they would like to target the September 26th meeting. But if members of council look on their agenda, it'll say the 12th.
Okay. Our first delegation then today is Craig Roach, Chair of the Pride Committee of Peel, promoting Pride Committee of Peel 10th Anniversary and Pride Week in Peel. I'd like them forward, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, my name is Greg Roach, and I'm one of the co-founders and the current chairperson of the Pride Committee of Peel. 2013 marks the 10th anniversary of Pride celebrations for the LGBT community throughout Peel region, with a number of events being hosted throughout the cities of Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon. These celebrations have been ongoing for some time and have included numerous items such as a family-oriented picnic, a flag raising by the City of Brampton, a marching community fair in Mississauga, and numerous events through the week hosted by various health service providers throughout the region of Peel. This year's dates begin on July 19th. The 10th anniversary picnic takes place on Saturday, July 20th at Chinguacousy Park, and wraps up on the 28th of July. Pride celebrations for the region are incredibly important as it allows us to create a community for the LGBT community right here at home, as opposed to having to look outside the region for various services chances to meet new friends, make acquaintances, and feel that they belong right here in the Region of Peel as opposed to elsewhere. I have with me today my companion, Braden Diaz, who would like to speak a little bit on the importance of Pride celebrations and what it means to members of the community.
Good morning, my name is Braden Diaz. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about why Peel Pride is important to me and my family. Peel Pride has left a statement in not only my life, but everyone else's that I've met because of it. My youngest sister, Ashley, she thinks it's very special and cool. I'm positive that she'll learn to keep it in a special place in her heart as well. Peel Pride is celebrating with our second family, and that's irreplaceable. To my mother, it's like a resource. She had lost a lot of her family in the church community when she came out. She felt that all the people that she met took her under their wings and shaped her into a great character, even if she didn't have some of the things that she used to. It's also important to her because we, as her children, have a feeling of security knowing that we know we're not alone in having a gay parent. It's not just in Toronto, but also in our community. To me, it's important because it's introduced us to so many amazing new people that I'll definitely never ever forget. In fact, one of them convinced me to come up here and talk to you today. With Peel Pride, we have a whole day of full-out celebration. It's a full day with my mom, which is always awesome, no matter the form that it comes in. And I know that my siblings would agree. Peel Pride is one day where the heat is the least of our problems. We can just enjoy ourselves. I hope that we're able to attend not only Peel Pride, but Toronto Pride and maybe even World Pride in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a motion by Foley and Hames that the July 19th to the 28th, 2013 be proclaimed Pride Week in the region of Municipality of Peel. All those in support? Carried. And I do have a speaker, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Braden, you did an awesome job this morning, and certainly gave members of council pause so that they can think about the far-reaching implications of and a celebration of Peel Pride. And I hope that members of council find the time on the July Pride weekend to visit Chinguacousy Park, a very family-oriented event, as you say, to encourage people to come out and show their support. And I know that here at the Region of Peel, they have, and I've got one of the signs here, a staff network called the LGBT I'm an Ally. And if any members of council want to display one on their monitor, they can as well. It's simply to show that you support inclusiveness and diversity here at the Region of Peel, and to make it a safe workplace for everybody. So I have those here if anybody wishes to see them, and I'll see you at Chinguacousy Park for the celebrations. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the speakers. Could I have a motion to receive the delegation? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Our next item of business then is the proclamation report, which I read was item 5A. Would someone like to just receive that then? Also, the report is here for information purposes. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on then to health. Councillor Moore.
Members of council, the first item on the agenda is HEA1, the Youth Violence Prevention Update. It is here for information. Moved by Councillor Mahoney. I'll get to you. Seconded by Councillor Sprovieri. And Councillor Sprovieri, you have a question? Yes, I'll let you. I see your name on the board.
Thank you. I thought I was going to miss the boat here for a minute.
No, you're not easy to forget, Councillor Sprovieri.
I missed the boat last week, or 2 weeks ago. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And just a question to staff. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I read this report with much interest, and as we all know, youth violence is a huge problem, not only here in Peel Region, but right across the GTA, as we know. And so we certainly need to work hard in finding a solution. The problem is that it's always been around, as we know, and it's probably going to be around for a long, long time. Although we can try to minimize the amount, which I believe is the whole aim of this initiative. But when I was reading this report, Madam Chair, there was a few things that came to my mind that I had to raise this morning. And I just want to ask the question to staff whether they can confirm what went through my mind or whether I'm off on left field somewhere. So I want to start by asking Dr. Moore or staff who is deals with health. And the first thing I want to ask staff is that whether there's been any studies done by anyone whether youth violence or youth who tend to be violent, if they have ever been studied about their IQ, whether there's a relation between violence and IQ. Meaning, if these youth that do violence, do they have high IQs, or do they have lower levels of IQs than the average youth?
Dr. Moen? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. It's been a while since I read The Roots of Youth Violence, which was the big comprehensive report that the province did. And I don't recall anything in that report speaking to that. They talked more about issues of mental health, not having stable housing, growing up in poverty, all those types of things. I don't believe there is any, so I would have to go back and look, but not that I recall.
Okay, well, that would be interesting if you can follow up on that, whether there's been any studies or not. And that's where I'm headed with this, Madam Chair, that in reading the report, a lot of the youth violence, from what I'm reading, derives from families of low-income families. So youth of low-income families, it appears to me, reading this report, that that's where a lot of the source of the youth violence originates, is from the low-income families. Would that be, would staff agree with that, or not really?
No, you couldn't say that. It's not a causation of youth violence, and certainly that was not raised in that comprehensive report the province did.
Well, in reading the report on page A14, it mentions, first of all, it says enrollment by 6 is strengthening in early years in Peel through a federally funded education grant for children of low-income families. So why are only low-income families, mentioned in this report, not the whole cross-section, that there would be assistance, because not even people of middle income sometimes can't afford to send their, if they have 3-4 children, which is common in my neck of the woods, to send these children to these programs.
Through the chair, I'm happy to speak to the Enrolled by 6 program. The Enrolled by 6 program is a Peel push to get low-income families in Peel connected to a federal program that is an education savings program. It's available by the federal government, targeted at low-income families. So if families sign up, the federal government will actually put money in a registered savings account for low-income children. So it's not a program that low-income children attend within Peel. Rather, Peel is trying to make sure that low-income families avail themselves of the dollars that are available through the federal government.
Okay. Well, Madam Chair, I think that it would be really worthwhile for staff to report back on this to see whether the youth violence is related to lower IQ levels and of families of low income. I think it would really, because if that is the case, that is the origins, then we can certainly target this area in trying to resolve the problem. So I think it's really important to figure out whether if that is there's a connection, because as I said, this problem is a very serious problem, and we need to find a solution. So if I can ask that.
And Councillor Sprovieri,
Yes.
since this report was made available and for this printed agenda, the province have released their implementation strategy. It's not incorporated in this report because of timing, and I'm confident that staff will report back on the implementation strategy, and perhaps they can, as part of that report, include evidence or lack thereof of the issue that you've raised.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe the report has been moved and seconded, Madam Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Paderak.
Yes, if we're looking for some smoking gun, if you will, some way of identifying people earlier to keep them from harm's way, I think the evidence is in fairly clearly, at least from what I've read. I stand to be corrected. But in the incarcerated population, we find, or the findings are, that learning disabled people are higher represented than in the general population. And if we were to want to find a cause and a place to put our money, it would be in identifying learning disabilities earlier and helping people with learning disabilities develop strategies. Learning disabilities don't go away, but there are strategies for working around it. I've experienced that in my own family, and you can be successful academically and in other ways by developing strategies and coping skills. And so that's, if we were going to spend any energy looking for causality, I would think that it would be fairly easy to establish that there is some causality there, and that would be a place for us to be pressing the provincial government to say that we're spending all this money on the right hand in terms of enforcement, in terms of the justice system, in terms of the penal system, and we have an education system that we're not adequately resourcing for this particular problem, which should be high on our agenda as a cost avoidance strategy, never mind a human compassion issue for these folks.
And more importantly, there isn't a correlation between IQ and learning disabilities.
No.
It's across the spectrum. Thank you, Councillor Paderak. Councillor Sado?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to suggest that perhaps staff could provide, instead of doing the research again, because that's quite time-consuming, but I would suggest that staff provide Councillor Sprovieri with a copy of the Roots of Youth Violence that was released in 2009. And our committee, the Peel Youth Violence Prevention Network that we've had in place since 2005, we've been dealing with this for quite some time and bringing the reports to council and the recommendations to the curling review that was done for the province. So all of the information that is in that report, and it's quite an extensive report, but all of the information that's in there, I think, is what Councillor Sprovieri is looking for. So I don't think there's any need for staff to go back out and do research, because the research has been done. And I know we've had reports to council probably at a more executive level of detail, but perhaps reading the report in its entirety would certainly answer a lot of the questions that you have. In addition, we annually provide a report to council from the Youth Violence Prevention Committee, and I think probably some of the earlier reports had a lot more detail and research in it. We've been working with our Safe City organizations and the United Way to do a lot of research. Excuse me, so the data is there. We've worked with University of Toronto on data collection and statistics. So all the work has been done, and it's been reported to council in small bits. But I think it might be helpful, John, if perhaps staff just provided you with that material, and then you would get those answers that you're looking for. I'm very pleased to see this report here. It's been very discouraging. I think my colleagues on the committee might say that, 2009, the Roots of Youth Violence was released by the province, and nothing was done. It basically sat gathering dust, and a tremendous amount of work, a lot of input, a lot of collaboration went into that report. And we were hoping that there would be projects, programs, and new initiatives coming out from the province with some strategic planning on how to deal with an issue that we've been dealing with for many, many years, and as of other municipalities. It seems like the province has basically been reacting to an issue. You get gun violence in Toronto, so all of a sudden we're going to have a youth strategy. Well, you already had a youth strategy, you just didn't implement it. Hopefully, and I think we have been, and I know other municipalities have as well, but I think here in Peel we have been extremely proactive in dealing with the issues around youth and involving youth in those issues. And I really want to commend our partners in the Youth Violence Prevention Network, those and the staff, the health staff that have been working with them, because they have come up with some phenomenal programs and going out and implementing those programs through the various organizations in Peel. And they've been doing the work that, quite frankly, the province should have been funding. And funding has always been the big issue in dealing with these things. So hopefully and I want to say United Way of Peel has been very, very supportive in doing the research and helping with funding and programming and focusing. I just have one question on page 3 of the report. It refers to planning the forum with the target audience to be youth. So, do we have a date in mind for that? I don't recall seeing that.
It's not in the report, Councillor Sato. Staff are targeting around October. In the fall.
Okay.
And the date has not been set yet.
Okay. So that would be a forum where the youth would be invited to attend and work with, and the organizations would be there to provide resources for them?
And all the community partners, including the area municipalities, because
Right.
as you know, our community services or parks and recreations programming very
Yes,
much
very much.
is complementary to everybody else's efforts.
Okay, that's good. I'd just like to put a bit of a placeholder in there for the timing. Thank you, and thank you for the report.
Thank you. Councillor Spovieri.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the suggestion, and I certainly would like to read the report. At least I don't have I get one of the assistants to do that for me, because I'm sure there's lots to read. But I want to be sure that we have another opportunity to talk about this. If staff is going to be bringing the full report in the future, then that's fine. But I don't want this just to go away. If there is a correlation between what I suspect and also others, that there is a connection, and that we should really put our minds around that and see what can be done to resolve this problem, Madam Chair. So I want to be sure that we have another chance to talk about this in the future.
When the implementation strategy comes forward, and certainly at the forum in the fall, we'll be receiving updates
Great.
Following that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of receipt of the report? That's carried. We did have a mover and a seconder, correct? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is HEA 2. They're the minutes from the Aging Population Term of Council Priority Steering Committee. It's been moved by Councillor McFadden, seconded by Councillor Foley. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, that's carried. Thank you. The next item is the Emergency and Protective Services Committee minutes. They are here, moved by Councillor Sato, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Seeing no questions, all in favor, that's carried. Thank you. And the next item is the province-wide adoption of the Air Quality Health Index. It is here with a recommendation. Currently, there's two tools, the Air Quality Index and the Air Quality Health Index. Staff are recommending that we communicate with the Ministry of the Environment that we just use one index. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Nika. Thank you. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. The final item is the review of the Peel Public Health Influenza Immunization Program. It is here with a recommendation. It's been moved. I think it's important to note, been moved by Councillor Mullen. I'll find a seconder. Mayor McCallion, would you like to second that report? The number of pharmacies that were administering the influenza vaccine last year was 33. Under this new program for this year, it's been increased to 126. So it's we've got a lot of them on board. Last year, a lot of that small number had to do with the timing. There was a very short turnaround week, so more people will have access to a convenient way to get their flu shot this year. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Moving on to Human Services, then Councillor Miles.
Chairman, the first item that is here for members of council is here for information, and if you'll recall that there was an article that was done by the Toronto Star that talked about socioeconomic issues in the region of Peel, and staff were asked to take a look at the article and respond to some of those issues. And I guess just briefly to confirm that they found that even though the University of Toronto had done a study for a number of years, that they were unable to provide any research findings to support the information that was in that report. And subsequent to that, the issues that the staff have pointed out, that the issues that the region of Peel are dealing with in regards to income disparity and poverty really is a worldwide phenomena. So I think it's an important report, because what it not only does is it talks about what's happening in the region of Peel more as a global issue that we're facing, but I think more important than anything else is on the subsequent pages that talks about what we as a region of Peel are doing to ensure that children, families, and those most vulnerable in our community are being served as well as we possibly can as a region, given the lack of funding that we get per capita compared to other regions in the GTA. So I think I wanted to highlight that to members of council, because I do think that the region of Peel was painted in a light that really wasn't accurate, and that there really is, we are as a council doing so much, as a region of Peel doing so much to support families and children in the region of Peel. So with that, Councillor Sprovieri.
Madam Chair, yeah, and I read this report with a lot of interest too, and for sure it's a worldwide problem with when new people migrate or immigrate to new areas. It takes time to establish themselves. They usually get the lower paid jobs because the better paid jobs are already taken up by the homegrown population, and that's just the fact of life. Actually, I think we're doing very well here in Peel and looking after the people with the newcomers. I think Canada as a whole is doing a lot. I've traveled extensively in the last couple of years, and I've been to many parts of the world, and I see how some countries don't deal with their migrants or immigrants in a very desirable way. People end up living in slums. They have no proper housing. They don't have no health care, and they have very poor quality of lives. And whereas here in Peel Region, we look after at least people get health care. We look after the housings, and we try to deal with the problem, whereas other countries, they just don't deal with the problem at all. They just let the people kind of swim or sing on their own type of thing. So at least here, Madam Chair, I have to say that I think we're doing a lot more than many other countries are doing with their new people moving around, migrating or immigrating to their new lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sprovieri. Councillor Paderak?
Well, I guess my point would be how we are, or what we are doing to deal with the problem. And I have spoken on the subject of the minimum wage before at this table. And when I read through the report, I see all these opportunities for subsidization. And I would put the question out to council. If you were a working person supporting your family, but on a minimum wage and not making enough money to make ends meet and having to go out and get this subsidy and that subsidy and whatever else is required in going to the food bank, would you feel better in that situation knowing that you were taken care of, or would you feel better in making a living wage and knowing that your work is valued? You're being asked to work 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week, but yet you can't support your family. Would you feel better if you had enough money so that you could be out there like everybody else? And what are the effects of that on your psychological makeup in terms of depression and other health effects that occur because you're in this situation where you're in a special class of people that needs subsidy for all kinds of things? And so I would just make the point that the region should redouble its efforts to get the province to move on and have a higher minimum wage. We should have a living wage. It's actually criminal that you ask somebody to work full-time and they cannot support themselves on that. Sometimes the husband and wife, both working full-time, and there's not enough money with the cost of housing and the cost of food and transportation. You just can't do it. And so that would be the point I would make, is that we should be redoubling our efforts to get people to be able to live with dignity and not to ask for handouts. After all, they are working hard. It's not like they're slacking, most of these people. They are working at a job that supposedly has some value because it has to be done. But we don't believe in compensating them to the amount that would allow them to live with dignity. Instead, we have them apply for a myriad of subsidies. And I find that would be a major improvement in many ways, not only for those people, but for their children and how they feel about themselves and think about themselves as they move forward in society. Thank you.
Okay, the report is here for your information. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Paderak. All in favor? That's carried. The next item, members of council, is on your added agenda, and it's item HSB1-1. And we need amendment to the original recommendation that was made. So first thing I need to do is ask members of council to vote to reopen the issue so that we can amend the original recommendation for bridge financing. So could I have a motion then? Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor McFadden. All in favor? That's carried. The report highlights are in your binder. If you would like someone to speak to the change or the need for change, I would ask Commissioner Menard to just briefly explain why we need to make these changes today.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm happy to. In essence, we're asking for flexibility with respect to the nature of the lender. When we brought the report forward in April, the proponent, SHIP, was dealing exclusively with Infrastructure Ontario. They have now started negotiations with other lenders, CMHC insured lenders, and have asked for us to allow them flexibility to enter into a lending arrangement with an organization other than Infrastructure Ontario. At the time of the initial report, it didn't anticipate they're dealing with any organization other than Infrastructure Ontario. So discussions continue in parallel streams. The other thing this report does is give the CAO, CFO, and myself a little bit of flexibility to incorporate any unanticipated requests that may come out of those negotiations. We don't know what conditions might be associated with financing through another lender, but we will commit to ensuring integrity with through the negotiations and transparency. So in essence, it's allowing SHIP somewhat more flexibility with respect to the lending of about $23 million.
Thank you. Oh,
Sorry, David.
yes.
Jenna, could you speak to repayment of the bridge financing? Should it be required by SHIP?
You could also explain to council that this is a little bit of a different model.
Yes.
And that's what's created this funding issue particulars.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So this is about a $56 million project, 225 units, anticipated on the Queen Street corridor at Hanson and Queen. The nature of our arrangement with the proponent, which is SHIP, is that they will get $30 million through the provincial federal funding. IAH funding is what it's referred to. They will get $1.5 million from the region of Peel by way of a forgivable loan. The proponent themselves will put $1 million in equity, their equity, into the project, and the balance will be financed. And the proponent SHIP will assume responsibility for about $23 million of financing. At the end of the day, SHIP will own the project, the building. Having said that, it's a little bit complicated because the contractor developer will also own part of the building. So the contractor will own the first and second floors and, of course, contribute to his share of the parking, which is underground. It's a little bit complicated because government funders don't want to be involved in funding the private component of an affordable housing building. Hence our request to do some bridge financing to cover the initial costs up front. The money flowing from the provincial government is $30 million. We control that and only flow the money to the proponent as per conditions with the provincial government, and we have a contribution agreement, but also conditions associated with the repayment of the loan. So we're in territory that is somewhat new for the region of Peel, but we've also taken Infrastructure Ontario to a place that is new for them. So it's a sound project, and the business model is sound, but it's a little has more players involved in it, and it's a little atypical to what they are used to negotiating. So given the fact that we do have some time pressures and the fact that council won't be meeting over the summer, we didn't want to jeopardize the availability of the provincial funding, which is totaling $30 million. There's one added component to this, and in the past, the province would flow us money all at once for a 3-year period, or give us one contribution agreement. They've changed the rules of IAH funding, so that now we enter into 3 contribution agreements, one following the other, taking us into the 3rd year, which has put some pressures and risk on the proponent that we dealt with in an earlier report. So it's complicated, but we're confident in the project and the proponent's ability to finance the project and also to repay the financing over a number of years.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Moore?
Thank you. So for clarification, at the end of the day, the Region of Peel's contribution to this in total will be 1.5 million, because the intent is that they will pay back the 19 million.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, and the 19 million is contingent upon them finding a funder or a lender. And at this point, I'm not really clear of why Infrastructure Ontario would not be the lender on that and why they have to look at a different lender. I understand the IAH piece,
Yeah.
but why? It seems to me that Infrastructure Ontario offer the best rates.
We haven't ruled out Infrastructure Ontario, but they have been not easy to deal with. Their requirements, they have changed their requirements. We're dealing with a number of people. Generally, they have been supportive, but they change. It's a bit of a moving target with them. They'll ask for lender equity, and we provide lender equity, and then they'll ask for something else. So they're. I don't want to say they're risk averse, but we've taken them, as I said earlier, to a situation that they haven't dealt with in the past. And we haven't ruled out Infrastructure Ontario as a lender, but SHIP does not want to be bound to them, and currently the council resolution binds SHIP to borrowing only from Infrastructure Ontario.
No, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Who binds us to?
Currently the resolution.
Our council
The current
resolution.
resolution prior to today, so it binds SHIP to dealing with Infrastructure Ontario exclusively. It doesn't allow or contemplate the potential of another lender.
So how does going to CMHC or another lender, how does that impact on the overall cost of the project? Because CMHC is a insured back. Mortgage generally costs you more, and certainly costs you more at the end of the day. So how does it inflate the $56 million projected cost?
It does inflate some of the costs in one part of the agreement, but it pretty much nets out because there are savings in other parts of the agreement. And I'd have to defer to staff to get more details, but I have been involved in those discussions, and pretty much it's a wash because of the conditions associated with the Infrastructure Ontario funding. I'm not sure if I have anyone here who has...
So what happens if they're not successful in getting a lender? By whatever, what is our deadline on this for the IAH money, the IAH funding?
We're in the process of confirming an extension, which I think is in the neighborhood of 90 days. I'm not sure if
Starting when?
We've asked for a 120-day extension. So we're slightly over the time limit with the provincial government, but they have been very supportive of the project and open to an extension for us to complete the negotiations.
And when did the clock start ticking on the 120-day request? From when?
May 31st?
From May 31st?
May 31st.
Okay. Well, I don't see this as a little bit complicated. I see it as a lot complicated. And what is our plan B in the event that we're not able to pull all the parties and funding together by our 120 days.
We don't have a Plan B.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sanderson?
Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank Janet and staff for all the hard work you've put into this. It's been months and months working on this. I've attended quite a few meetings myself along with Councillor Plushy, and it has not been easy. It's been back and forth, and you said it's a moving target. Sometimes it was worse than that. And I know right from the get-go that that the proponent did have some other interests from some other lenders at that particular time. We were going with IO because of who they are. And I think it's going to be successful in going forward with the other lender. And again, I'd just like to thank you very much for all the hard work and diligence that you've put into this. Thank you.
Would you like to move the recommendation?
Absolutely.
Councillor Sanderson, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Mahoney? Oh, Councillor Starr?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there any relationship to the difficulty in financing because there's a commercial component to it versus a completely residential building?
Yes.
Was that a good thing to be getting involved in with a commercial component when we're trying to establish only residential from the Peel's perspective?
Well, we don't see it as problematic. We see it as desirable. It makes good sense to mix commercial retail space with social housing, and it adds to active living. If people living above can shop below, there are all kinds of benefits to having a mixed-use building. It's not typical. I mean, you see it in Toronto, in the private sector. It's not typical with affordable housing, but we don't see that as a reason for not doing it. But it does lend or provide more complexity. And to be sure, the lender is very conscious of not mixing the lending for affordable housing with the commercial component of the building. So we've had to give a lot of assurances and separations of contracts and agreement, which is all very doable, but it takes more time and effort.
Last question, is it going to cost the region of Peel any money for this arrangement?
No. On the contrary, at the end of the day, our contribution to the project will be in the neighborhood of $1.5 million. Typically, our contribution to an affordable housing building would be up in the neighborhood with a combination of cash and financing of $30 million. So in essence, this partnership will result in our paying far less of taxpayers' money into the housing.
I understand that part of it, but with this combination, is it costing us any money to pad to make sure that the deal works? We're not. There isn't a percentage being put on or whatever.
No, there's no.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on then to management, Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item on the agenda under A1 is the proposed road closure. There's a motion attached to the report, moved by Councillor Paderak, seconder, Councillor Thompson. No discussion. All those in favor? That carries. A2 is the transfer of regional-owned land in the city of Brampton, Sanderson and Sprovieri. No discussion. All in favor? That carries. B1 is the triennial financial performance report, and we need a motion of receipt for this information. It's moved by Tovey, seconded by Fonseca. No discussion. All in favor? That carries. The B2 is the 2012 Treasury Report, and there is a motion regarding investment limitations. Moved by Nika, seconder on this side. somewhere?
Sato.
Okay. There's no discussion. All those in favor? That carries. B3, amendments to bylaw 56, 2008, and there's a motion attached to this report. I have a mover. Councillor Moore, seconder. Councillor Fonseca. No speakers. All those in favor? That carries. B4 is the report of the Debt Issuance Committee held on June the 18th. I need a motion of receipt of this report. It's moved by Councillor Miles, seconded by Councillor Sprovieri. All those in favor? That carries. B5 is the report of the Emergency Management Program. Again, I need a motion of receipt. It's moved by Councillor Sato, seconded by Councillor Sprovieri. No speakers. All those in favor? That carries. B6, I believe there's a motion that's coming up on that. I recognize Mayor McCallion.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is on its way to the chair. The regions in the 905 area seem to be marching towards election of the chair. And I think the way that this was set up years ago by the province was a mixture second to none. The way regional government was set up was all over the map. Look at the region of Niagara. It's a most unusual setup. And I think it's time, obviously, that some of the regions have decided that they should try to bring it in line with democracy, because the election of the chair is not democratic. It's elected by the council and not by the people of the region, and it's a very important position and carries a lot of weight with it. And so I've talked to Mayor Morrison and to Mayor Fennell, and at the same time now the City of Brampton is looking at adding to the members of council, which is something they have been concerned about for a number of years. When Mississauga undertook to get out of regional government, Brampton raised the question at that time. So it's been on the burner for a while, and etc. So I think the region appeal has got to deal with it. Yes, we talked about it many years ago, but we never really moved forward on it. I think the time has come that we should look at it. That's all I'm recommending, that we look at it. So the motion that Mayor Fennell and I have put is to appoint a task force or a committee of the 3 mayors, the regional chair, and the 4 CAOs, as well as the regional clerk, to work on this between now and September 26 is when the Brampton request comes forward, and to come forward with a report to council as to how we might deal with the election of the chair and the crest of Brampton to add more people. So that is the motion that Mayor Fennell and I are putting forward for us to, over the summer, to deal with it and bring it back to the September 26th for council to deal with it. It's not recommending what changes should occur, just looking at it and getting some in-depth study done on it in regard. I distributed this morning a copy of the region of Durham's report as to how they handled it. York is doing a different way. They're not going through the process that Durham went through. They're going the short route of getting the province to approve the election of the chair. So if those two occur, then the region appeal will be the only region that doesn't elect, that the citizens don't have the opportunity to elect the regional chair. What it poses is a problem that we haven't had to deal with too often, but yes, we did have to deal with it recently. And that is, if anybody around this table wants to run for a regional chair, they have a big decision to make, to say to the people of their respective municipality, yeah, I want to be your councillor, and then within 2 weeks decide they want to be regional chair, which is unfortunate. And it forces a by-election automatically. And, I'm not sure that's according to Hoy. So I think we must deal with it, and I would hope that we can, through the mayors and the CAOs, that we can deal with these two issues and bring a report back to council on September the 26th for discussion and debate, so that all members of council will have an opportunity to debate it. But I think we better sort it out. I think the time has come. It hasn't become an issue here recently, but it seems that in the other regions it is an issue, and they do want to proceed with the democratic process of electing the chair of the region appeals. So let's do it. So I'm happy to move the motion, and Mayor Fennell has seconded.
Mayor Fennell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly seconded the motion. How can you not move into the most democratic process we could possibly have? This motion today refers, I guess, last week's direction to come back to a report on September 26th, because, whether we're doing the Durham style or the York style, we need in Peel to have answers to all the logistical questions. For example, if you're going to register to run, do you register in Peel? Peel isn't an election headquarters. Do you register in Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon? Do you register in all three? How does the funding work? How does the election work? How do all the details work? So I think this is a good time to make sure we have all of our process properly to say we're ready in 2014 or we're ready in 2018, but I think it's the right direction to move. I also think Brampton, it's no secret to anybody around here that we went through a very serious process with Justice Adams, who concluded the most analysis of the growth of the region and correct representation of all municipalities, concluded all seats in Brampton with our current size council should be here at the region. That was commissioned by Premier McGuinty. It was the recommendation of the justice. And then, of course, that report did not move forward. So in Brampton, we've asked that that report be dusted off, and if it was right 5 years ago for a pattern for the build-out appeal, then it has to be right in 2013, 2014. So we'd like to have that consideration brought back at the same time with the so we have a robust discussion about the organization of the region appeal and the proper representation, as well as the role of the elected chair. I did read, for example, in the Durham example, there would be a different funding required. There would be a different staffing for an elected chair, because an elected chair would be required to stay elected, obviously, far more public appearances, preparation. The staffing to support would be necessary. The budget to support the chair to attend the numerous public functions, because you would be a publicly elected figure, to attend the many diverse functions in our community, from plaques to presentations to speeches to being all throughout the region appeal. Let's have this properly organized, evaluated with the budget, and come back in September with all the information for council to debate at that time. So I'm very pleased to second Mayor McCallion's motion. For the record, we did speak before we presented this motion. I want to be very clear when the mayor spoke before a motion, and we both agree that this is the right process to do this properly, do our homework, and come back in September with a program and a plan for the region appeal that moves toward a direct election of the regional chair. Thank you.
Councillor Paderak?
Well, I guess I might have a slightly different perspective on this. In Ontario, mayors and chairs do not, with the exception of the Mayor of Toronto, don't have any extraordinary powers. They are basically the chairman of the board, and they have one vote. And in a case of the regional appeal, our chair rarely exercises his vote, because we don't get that close a vote very often. Often it would be, I forget what the numbers are now, but I think it hasn't come up in this past term at all that the chairs have been in a position to vote. I look at it as it being the chair, you need someone who can work with a very large council, 24 people, and that it is not a dilution of democracy to have the chair elected by the members, because the members will choose somebody that they know has the best interests of the region at heart, has experience with the region most likely, and they can work with that person. What I see with the election of a chair in a large jurisdiction like the Region of Peel is that that person will have to raise significant amounts of money. So all of a sudden it becomes a big dollar venture to have a chair. And how that chair will raise that money and what that does to the dynamic of who the chair is representing when you're talking about those big dollars that can only be raised $750 at a time maximum, would be an interesting prospect. I would hope if this motion passes, which I will support, that we take a good look at Halton, which is our most closest neighbor who has had an elected chair for at least the last term, since 2000, to see how that's worked out in terms of efficiencies, costs, political dynamic, and working relationship between council and the chairperson. But on the surface of it, I'm of the belief, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I have never heard anyone say that we have an undemocratic situation here. That has not come up. There have been newspaper columnists who have gone in this direction and said we should have and editorials that we should have an elected official, but I don't get it from the general public. Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I'm going to support the resolution. I do think that perhaps we could make one small amendment on it where, consisting of the three mayors, the regional chair, chief administrative officers, or designate. Because I know at the City of Brampton, our Chief of Corporate Services is taking the lead with our Regional Representation Task Force. So if there's no objection to that, I mean, this very defines it as that, but they may choose in actual fact and may make more logical sense to have a designate. So I'm going to move that slight amendment with the mover and seconder's permission. Hopefully that's not contrary, certainly. On the motion number 1 and number 2, it doesn't preclude how we're going to elect. You're simply going to investigate and report back, and I think that's certainly a wise decision on our part as a council. And Mayor McCallum, you raise a very good issue in terms of the potential need for a by-election should a member of this council decide to put their name forward, and that needs to be addressed. I'd also like addressed, I know during the last selection of the chair, for some reason it was a secret ballot, and maybe and that somewhat surprised me. I didn't certainly at the city when we select our Councillor Hames in this case to come to the region, it was not done by secret ballot. So if that could be clarified as to what kind of a balloting process, and my preference would certainly be that it not be a secret ballot. On the second part of the motion with Brampton's request for an additional regional council member, while I do see these somewhat as separate, completely separate issues, they relate to to the next election, so I think it's probably logical that they be here. We do have a regional representation task force at the City of Brampton where we have appointed some citizen members to sit there. There's a report 8B1 on the agenda today where our staff at the city are looking for permission to come and delegate regional council on September the 26th. So there's a bit of a disconnect between our staff making a presentation, giving some background material on the Justice Adams report and whatnot, and then a lateral committee operating with the mayors and the chairs. So even though we'll probably approve our staff coming forward on the 26th, maybe we leave it there as a placeholder. But I think it's What they make presentation on might have to change by the 26th. Easier to have the placeholder and then withdraw in the context of the report that the mayor's come forward with. So I just raised that as a bit of a red flag. I sit on the Regional Representation Task Force, so it's easy enough to report back to the citizens, what has transpired here at the region to make sure that they're kept up to date and current on the activities here at Regional Council. Thank you.
Councillor Crombie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the resolution as well. I believe in the direct election of the chair. I think maybe we've been stuck in a process that others have moved on from. That said, I think it does provide a lot of opportunity for conflict, overlap, protocol issues, and increased cost. I mean, what if the three mayors and the chair are at events? What's the protocol there? Plus, as Mayor Fennell has pointed out, that will come with a new enlarged staff requirement. So there are a lot of considerations to be made, as well as roles and responsibilities. Now that you have an elected chair, how does that differ from the roles and responsibilities of the three mayors? I would like to consider also a friendly amendment, number 3, that we review in Mississauga the population distribution in the wards, because now that we have also a growing population in Mississauga, we know that the federal government has added another riding in the middle of Mississauga, and what makes logical sense to me, and of course we would have to review this, is that there be 2 wards in each of those ridings. And it's time that even Malton have its own representation. The size of Malton is equal to some of the southern wards in the south of the city. So it's something that we should review. I'm not suggesting we do it, but I think we should definitely look at some of the northern wards. 5, 6, 7, 8 are twice the size of the southern ward, so it's time to take a look at the population distribution. And maybe we would come to the conclusion that we need another ward as well. But I will support the recommendation as it stands, and I would like to consider a friendly amendment if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ianica?
Thank you. Well, just following on the heels of the last comment, no, I wouldn't be supportive of that. Just anecdotally, for what it's worth, just because it's come up, as the councilman with 88,000 people, 35,000 homes, 12,000 more coming, my work never increased more than when City Council went from 9 to 11 people. I mean that sincerely. And there's a lot written in the literature of dynamics of decisions where I could go to council, talk to a mayor, 4 other people in the room, and I could make a decision. Suddenly you become Montreal, there's 88 people in a room, and you can't make decisions anymore. So that's just my observation for what it's worth, but that's not what I wanted to speak to. And I'm not going to make it as a motion. It's just a thought that I might want to urge the 2 movers and the seconder to consider. Just because things are as they are and we're government and it's July, and I think a lot of our very good staff may have already booked vacation time and what have you, to think that you're going to get all the people that you need and the pertinent staff that's got to give you reports and statistics, and some of them may be leaving for vacation Monday and booked it a year ago and maybe gone through. You've got a lot of moving parts here to think that you're going to be back in September 26th, not the least of which is Brampton may bring you their report on September 25th. Well, what do you do with it now? Or might I suggest maybe October, the next regional? I'm just throwing that out there because you've got 10, 12, 15 people in a room, and are you sure you're all going to be able to have all of those people in a room during July and August because it comes back in September? Just a thought that if an October meeting might make more sense, I throw that out to the mayor, the 2 mayors. That's all, but I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Mayor Fennell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we should leave the September 26th target, and if there's a reason we're unable to bring something substantive, we would know that by the first meeting in September, and we could alert people that we're moving into October. But I think if we start moving the date, we then start to remove the opportunity to be effective for 2014. I think there's also a clock ticking if that's going to be our goal, or if it's 2018. So I'm not uncomfortable with the September 26th. As you know, we're all together at AMO in August. We may find that the best meeting might take place in August to pull everybody together to say, here's what we need for early September, so we're ready to have a report written that's substantive and on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor, but I think we could I'm not uncomfortable with that date. Thank you.
Could I just ask,
Mayor McCallion?
I agree with the mayor, and I appreciate your suggestion that if we, because quite honestly, we have to, if there are any changes that the region would like to make on both the election of the chairman or the Brampton's request, we got to get it to the province to be passed this fall. Absolutely. You know, and leaving it till October could certainly could be a problem. Of course, we don't know which party will be in power. So I think we play it by ear in regard to.
Chair Cole?
I guess I'm just wondering, do you want me to set these meetings up and have my office then try to coordinate everybody together so we do it in one place and try to set a number of dates and stuff and start early? Okay.
Mayor Fennell?
Yes, I think that would be ideal, and I think looking at the summer already scheduled events and meetings, I think with certainty we're at the AMO conference. We're not all at the AMO conference. Well, majority of us are, and we have the large urban mayors meeting on the Sunday, so perhaps the first meeting could be then. That would be mid-August, and then we start to frame the questions we have for staff. The staff are not necessarily at AMO, but certainly the mayors are, and we would be able to start to frame what we need to have in a report to come forward. We have an August council meeting also in Brampton, so if there's additional information that we would like, we could put it all together out to staff before the end of August would be the target, so that we could have a good discussion in early September to prepare for a September 26th report to council.
If I may, I'm not sure that we're all going to be at AMO. I know I'm supposed to be in a different place, but what I will try to do is have a meeting in July, okay, at some point in time. I'll try to get one scheduled as soon as possible. And if I was just going to say, if there's other councillors that want to email to my office of suggestions and ideas, I'm prepared to listen to them and put them forth in the committee to discuss that. I also think that what will fit in well together is that the taxpayers will be interested in, do we come up with cost savings analysis for the future? You know, we're trying to set very low taxes in the next year or two, and if we're going to do that, in my opinion, you're going to have to find cost savings somehow, and duplications and those things that we've all talked about over the years, and it'll give this committee an opportunity to discuss those kind of things and come back. So, thank you. Moving on. Sorry,
Okay,
Richard.
if there no other speakers, I just want to make a comment. My ward is 22 kilometers by 17, and Councillor Patterack's is even larger. So what you might consider is a lecture chair, but appoint the two of us to look after the north for you.
A lecture chair.
We don't have any staff either.
All those in favor?
Hold on. If I can go back, if I can go to the motion, I understood that the mover and the seconder saw the or designate as a friendly amendment.
Yes.
And I did not hear about the third suggestion, whether Councillor Crombie was actually moving that as an amendment or on reflection was not moving it.
It was just for discussion, I think, and I think more appropriately to be looked at the city of Mississauga.
So you're satisfied with it the way it is? Okay. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next item is C1, the Commissioner of Health Services elected President of Ontario Social Services. So you're to be congratulated. You have a new job. I need a motion of receipt for this item. Moved by John Sanderson, seconded over here by Frank Dale. All those in favor? That carries. I'll have to take the... Gail?
The Region Appeal continues to be a leader in the province of Ontario. And I think the fact that our staff are actually taking leading roles across the province to set the agendas is a really positive thing. So congratulations, and also thanks to the Commissioner for taking on this added responsibility, because it really is a lot of responsibility. But if we are going to pave the way for the direction in which we think things should be happening, we need to play these particular roles. So kudos to you.
I'm going to take communications one at a time, since each of them have a bit of different information in it. D1 is the Greater Toronto Airports Authority letter, and I need a receipt for that. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Fonseca. All those in favor? It carries. D2 is the letter from the Legislative Coordinator, City of Brampton, and the recommendation is that it be referred to the Corporate Services. So I need a motion to refer it to Corporate Services. Councillor Moore, will you move that? Seconder, Frank Dale. Any discussion? All those in favor? It carries. D3 is from the Minister of Energy, and it deals with a stronger municipal voice in renewable energy, and we're asking for motion of receipt for this election announcement. Councillor Foley, and the seconder. Got it, yeah. All those in favor, it carries. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moving on to Public Works, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Order, please.
PWA Operations Support, update on the process to replace utility billing system for information only. Moved by Councillor McFadden, seconded by Councillor Miles. No discussion. All in favor? Carried. Moved on to PWB Transportation, B1, the Region of Peel Controlled Access Bylaw. Moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? Carried. Review of existing flashing speed zones and revised times. I hope everybody's read the report, because every municipality seems to have the odd change. Moved by Councillor Dale and seconded by Councillor Crombie. All in favor? Carried. Speed limit revision on Road 12 Old Baseline, moved by Councillor Patterack and seconded by Councillor Fennell, or Mayor Fennell. All in favor? Carried. Steeles Avenue, Churchville traffic control signals evaluation, moved by Councillor Foley and Mayor Fennell. All in favor? Carried. And the professional engineering services report for the Class B environmental assessment, moved by Councillor Starr and second by Councillor Tovey. All in favor? Carried. Back to you, Mr. Chairman. We have no communications.
Moving on then to bylaws. There are several of them here. Bylaws number 7. Could I have the motion? Okay. I have a motion then by Yanika and Fonseca that the bylaws listed in Regional Council agenda, being bylaws 62 to 2013 to 67, 2013 inclusive, be given the required numbers of reading, taken as read and signed by the chair and the regional clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Are there any questions on any of those bylaws? If not, all those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I have a motion then by Sato and Patterack, which is number 8A. Let me get that. The resolution for the regards the funding for the Peel children, and it's on Aid Society, and it's on the board. Can you read that? Or you all saw it? Counselor Sato, did you want to speak to it or anything?
Not much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out that if you may recall last week when Peel Children's Aid came to see us, they were actually asking the province for an additional funding, not full funding, but they were prepared to go with additional funding. And staff have determined and have consulted with CAS that we should be requesting from the province that they provide the full funding that the province has said that they are entitled to for the region of Peel. And that will give us a starting point. They should be getting the 92 million and 93 million rather than a more complicated number that CAS was requesting last week. So I agreed to leaving that in the motion. I think it's a good idea, and hopefully we can get our MPPs in support. And having said that, I noticed that this is not being copied to the MPPs, so I would suggest that we add that to the motion as the final one, that all of the Peel MPPs be provided with a copy of this resolution and a request to support it.
Do you mind if I check with the chair there to make sure that they haven't already been able to make some kind of a deal with the province to get some money? I don't.
Well, my understanding is that I spoke with Janet this morning, and they have not, so that this is an appropriate resolution for us to proceed with.
Okay, thanks for that. All those in favor then?
With the amendment, as amended.
As amended. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the second one is delegation. Okay, I have a motion then by Sanderson and Sprovieri that the request for our council of the City of Brampton to delegate on September the 26th, 2013 Regional Council meeting be regarding to the composition of the Regional Council be approved. All those in favor, if there's no question, carried. Okay, we have it's just the minutes, right?
Several reports,
Can I ask the question on item 10? Do we need a motion to move into camera?
No. I'll move the in-camera items.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Okay. I have a motion that June 27th closed session minutes be received, and further that the recommendations contained within the financial report relating to items 10.1a to 10.1c, inclusive, listed on the July the 4th, 2013 Regional Council agenda be approved and become public upon adoption. Are there any further questions? If not, all of those in favor? Those not opposing, all of those in favor? Carried. Okay, just before I do the confirming bylaw, I want to just indicate that when you come back in through the summer or in September, our construction downstairs still will be forthgoing, and staff have made arrangement for most of you to park outside in the first parking lot beside the building, and I believe it will be the second row. They'll have signs up there for you. We have a special parking space for Richard and Paul Palesci. Richard, I'll take you and show you where that is. It's right beside this building. And the staff will be there to let you in. And also that most of you know that the contract for the bar has been tendered and awarded, and there are people that are interested in getting their picture taken and that's going to happen on July the 8th at 3:30 at the Humber River, where the first new bridge is going to be built over. At 3:30 on, that'll be next Monday?
Yes.
Next Monday. Pardon me? Okay, I'll send you an email and the location on that. And with that, I have a motion then by McCallion and McFadden that bylaw 68-213 to confirm the proceedings of Regional Council meeting held on July the 4th, 2013, and authorize the execution in accordance with the regional bylaw relating thereto, with the regional chair and the regional clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. All those in favor? Carried. Before I take the motion to adjourn, I want to wish you all the very best of a summer holiday and hope that you enjoy a lot of fun with your family and friends and in the summer, and we'll see you in September, if not before. And I have a motion then by Sanderson and Moore that the Regional 4th, 2013 Regional Council meeting be adjourned. And there is going to be lunch at the back, so please don't all leave before it gets there. All those in favor of adjourning? Thank you all very much.
Law, and in some cases, we actually take people to court, and in some cases, we even put them in jail for failing to comply with the fire code.
But that's to keep our community as a whole safe.
Our community and our firefighters.
There you go. Excellent. Let's talk about fireworks. Typically people enjoy fireworks at certain times of the year, and we even see our young people enjoying it. Do you have